Hello and welcome back. This is the Clay Golem. This is Foundry VTT, and in this video we are going to be taking a leap of faith. So I have been stuck, you can see on the screen, my Dungeons and Dragons Game Edition. I have been stuck on 3.3.1 for quite a while. Yes, I've been playing with the 4.x version of it, but not for live games. I think probably it's about time to make the jump. Yes, it is quite a big leap of faith. We know that everything is not perfect. Most of the modules, the supporting modules at least that I use, a vast majority of them have now been updated, but there's some big caveats here. midi-Qol is still in beta, however you want to say it. So there are no guarantees that is going to work. That goes along with some of the others compatibility modules with that, like DAE, that in theory is fine, but of course any changes to MIDI might affect DAE, etc. I know even just yesterday there was a patch for midi-Qol that removes a little bit of, I think it takes on some of the functionality of DAE. So there's always that integration between those modules, even when they're owned by the same person, that we will see some fluctuations with. So I'm not suggesting that you do this. I'm suggesting you follow along and make your own decision on whether the time is right for you. For a lot of you it will be. If you're really heavy into automations, it won't be. So what else might we be at risk? CPR, what used to be Chris's pre-mades, is now the cauldron of plentiful resources. That is also in beta, whatever. So is it working? Yes. Is it perfect? Not necessarily, and we know that there are still some bugs, so you might want to hold off for that. What about Gambit's pre-mades? That's not ready. That's not ready. So if you're heavy into your automations, if you've got a similar automation set up to me, you are going to lose stuff. I've had a bit of a chat with my players. I've let them know what the impact, I suspect the impact will be on them. And the advantages of doing it. Now, one of the big advantages, of course, is we have the in-game rulebooks for the PHB, the DMG, and very shortly the Monster Manual, which I'm really excited about. Having those things in Foundry is brilliant. That does mean, of course, switching over to the 2024 rules, which we are going to do slowly. We'll see how that goes. We're just going to manage that. If a character dies, their new character will be a 2024 character rather than a 2014 character. We'll make it work. My job as the DM is to balance these things and make them work. So I'll be doing that. For example, 2024 characters will start one level behind the 2014 characters, just to help balance that difference in power between the two sets of rules a little bit. They're aware of that. I think the biggest thing I'm going to miss for a short time is Gambit's torches and lanterns. They're just so slick and beautiful. But he has promised he's already got those done. They're just not released yet, so hopefully that won't be long, because yeah, I'm gonna miss those. So let's do it, shall we? Let's be brave and leap into this. So let's click that update button if available. Well, it darn well should be. We know it is on the other one, and it's gonna wow, I was going to say it's going to take a while, but it's actually downloading fairly quickly there. Now, what are the other impacts this might have that might affect some of you guys? We are building Curse of Strahd. Currently, we've been building that in the 3.3.1. We are not building that with midi-Qol and all of those kind of mods attached to it, because we want to make sure it's as compatible as possible for as many people. The more mods we have, the bigger problems we might have. The mods that we do use in the Curse of Strahd, or at least that we use as part of the packaging, which is Tagger, LibSocket, Monk's Active Tile Triggers, they are all updated for the ones that needed to be, because some of them just didn't need any changes at all. Like Monk's Active Tile Trigger, I don't think that needed any changes. They're all compatible with the what is now the 4.2.2 D&D game engine. So we should not have any issues with that. That should all be fine. I will need to go through and update a whole bunch of mine. So you can see at the top here, when we look at my add-on modules, I've got DAE, dynamic effects using active effects. You'll notice that that is locked because I locked that at the version that was compatible for the 3.1 version of the D&D game engine. Same as midi-Qol, that is locked, and times up's locked. Auto rotate, builder bonus, the combat HUD, you can see all these ones have got these little padlocks next to them because I very deliberately locked those so that I couldn't accidentally update and ruin everything. But none of those are part of the Curse of Strahd pack. You don't need any of those. So my job is going to be to go through some of these. So media optimizer I locked as well because I knew it was functioning, sequencer I locked, etc. So I've got quite a few that I locked down and went, please don't mess with them at the moment. So I need to unlock all of these. I need to update them. Now midi-Qol and possibly a couple of others there's more than one branch. So there's the 3.3.1 branch. Let's be brave and do midi-Qol right now. That's going to try and update to the latest version, but it's going to be the latest version on the current branch, which is probably, oh there we go, this module is incompatible for the following installed systems. So it is going to update it, but this is version 11.6.32. That's the branch for the 3.3.1 game engine that we were just on. We're not on that anymore, which is why it said, hang on a minute, this branch is not compatible. So you will need to make sure that you, if you're updating for things like midi-Qol, we'll probably have the same with dynamic active effects. You may well get that as well. There we go, saying it's incompatible, just popping up in the middle of the screen there. I can update it, but it is not going to work in my game. So it's to do with those different versions. Oh, this is the problem. Different branches of those modules, and the way that Tim Posney, who does midi-Qol, or rather he's the owner of it, he has lots of support from lots of people like, you know, Bugbear and Chris and all sorts of people, Amber's in there and everything else. Lots of people support that, but they've made it so that whichever version you're on, you can choose your branch and it will lock it to that branch. I'm now fully up to date on the branch that won't work for my game engine now. So I will need to go and get that link. Now what I would do in this video, this is going to be in several chunks because I'm going to do all of that, and then I'm going to come back, because you don't need to watch me do that. I'm going to do all of that, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to jump in. We're going to have a little look at some of the Curse of Strahd stuff, just check things haven't been messed up. We are then going to look at some of the mods that we know should be working and just check a few things, and we're going to run a mock combat, just chuck some monsters and some players in together just to see where we are with midi-Qol, DAE, automated animations and all of that stuff. How far have we slipped backwards with that stuff? So I say we know we're losing Gambit stuff at the moment, and we are probably losing some CPR stuff. So again, Gambits is saying, yeah, you can update it, but it's the wrong version because again, it's a branch. So that's what we're going to do in this video. This might be a long one, but hopefully this will help you decide, one, know how to upgrade if you choose to do that, and right now, today, at this point, how big a problem that might be for you, how far back it will take you, and you can make a decision whether to wait or not. All right, I'm rambling, so I'm going to go fix all of these mods, and I will see you shortly. All right, so you can see on screen the extensive list of everything I have updated. Now, if you are going looking for the links for midi-Qol, DAE, for example, unless you are on their Discord, you might have trouble finding that. I'll put links to them. Remember, they are in beta versions, so don't get cross if things don't work quite well, okay? Because that's why they're in beta, is to make sure that they can get everything running as smoothly as possible. So at your own risk, of course, as with any update, don't be an idiot like me and just whack update and then see what's broken. I do feel I'm in a position to be able to either fix bits appropriately talk to the modders when I encounter problems, and as a DM circumvent any issues that actually happen in game, and just run with it. I've got many years of playing paper based, so I know how, you know, if an automation or a mechanic doesn't work in Foundry, I can fudge it, no problem. The game keeps moving. If you're not confident in doing that and you really do rely on your mods to do the work for you, then yeah, be careful about taking that risk. But anyway, I'm rambling again. So yeah, I'll put the links for the ones that are in beta in there. That will include CPR. I think you'll need to use a special link for that one as well, if you choose to do it. So what's updated? Well, animated cartoon effects, which is something that came as, it was an old one that Chris had. It came as part of Gambit's pre-mades. We know Gambit's is not done, so that's got an error. But you can see everything else has been updated. Lovely jubbly, no problems here at all, no errors or anything like that. Of course, I can now bring in the DMG and the player's handbook. You did bring in the player's handbook, right? I'll check that in a moment, make sure, because I didn't have it installed on this version because it was the wrong version. Now it does say about here at the bottom, look, I've got a couple of things. Builder bonus incompatible, and magic items incompatible. I knew magic items would be, looks like builder bonus may be a bit of an issue. Now we did need builder bonus for compatibility with some of the CPR stuff. I think it was CPR. But obviously CPR stepped forward now, although it's in beta. So we'll have to see what problems that gives us. And if it gives us major problems, we just won't use that function and we'll do it the old ways of describing things or making dice rolls and stuff like that. And I think one of the things that I don't use is I don't use dice tray. A dice tray allows you at the bottom right hand corner where you've got you can send your messages and things. It gives you some dice that you can click on to roll. I don't need to use it because my automations take care of that for me. But if I'm going to have problems with things, probably a really good thing to consider is sticking dice tray in there so that if you need them to make a manual roll, and the automation isn't working or giving you what you want, you can just get them to click on the dice. It's just going to be really easy way for you to just get on with the game and keep the flow going rather than trying to debug, which you don't want to do. Don't debug things in the middle of a game because that's going to wreck it for your players. It destroys the atmosphere, it slows everything down. So that's everything installed for me that I can, which is brilliant. This is all up to date. Oh, there we go. It hadn't quite finished it. How bizarre. It has now said, oh, I wonder if because they were relying on something else that was incompatible. Look at that. Weird. That's just done that. There we go. So the only one that's given me grief over is that cartoon effects thing, which is good, and I should have the player's handbook in here. Pretty sure I requested that. Gone blind. Oh, hang on a minute, we're still going, are we? It's still updating in the background. There's okay. it's still going. I thought it had stopped. Clearly it had not stopped. Dungeon Direct. Oh, there we go. So we've got Dungeon Master's Guide in, and we've got the Player's Handbook. They are both in now. So when we go into our game, it's going to ask us to migrate. Now, this is the really scary part, because this is what's going to potentially wreck my live active game that I'm also using for creating a mod. So this could be a significant problem for me as the DM. Yep, it's a risk, but it might be fine. I don't know until I actually go into the game and start playing with it, which, as I said before, that's what we're going to do in this video, is we're just going to have a look at different things. So this should load fine. Shouldn't be any problems whatsoever. It might take a few moments. A little bit slow. Yep, okay, so that's brought me in. Yep, Carousel Combat Tracker, because I've updated all of these, I do get some messages for this. You can see, look, Media Optimizer, which has been updated, is doing a whole bunch of bits and bobs that I wasn't expecting it to do, but there we go, it is. Which is fine, don't have a problem with that. You know, some of these modders, like Ripper, I trust them. They know what they're doing. They are so slick with their stuff. If it wants to media optimize stuff like that because I've just translated over, fine. I'm not going to be concerned. But you can see it's loaded my world absolutely fine. There's no reason any of this will be broken at all. Let's just jump into a random scene. Let's jump into Blood of the Vine Tavern in Barovia, and straight away everything looks fine. So, and there's no reason it would impact your scenes. It shouldn't impact your walls, your regions, or anything like that, because they're all Foundry based rather than the D&D game engine based. What it might impact is some of the automations, animations. So when you go into combat, you're making dice rolls, skill checks, and things like that. That's where it comes into. So what I need to do next is look at all of the midi-Qol settings, make sure I'm happy with those, how I think that should work, have a look at CPR, and then just start chucking some characters and players into a combat scene and having a bit of a battle and see what works. So is our melee combat working as expected? Is our ranged combat working as expected? Some of our basic feats and traits and things, are they working as expected? And if not, that's fine. Can we fix them? Or as the DM, do I need to be aware that, for example, if I open Olwen, our druid, when I look and I pick something like a druid, because they have a lot of bits going on, you know, spells and everything else. So when I look through here and I go, and you know, torch, I want torch to work, it won't work like it did because we don't have Gambit's torch. That's, as I said before, that's the bit I'm going to miss the most. But all the weapons and things, there's no reason why they won't work, so we're going to be checking those. We're going to look at some of the features, and things like the totem spirits for bear and things that I made for, or rather I adjusted to make sure they worked for my character, for my player. I need to check that things like that work. So if I stick her out here and I do her totem thing, I created it so it puts down a template, and it should, you can see it's casting a spell over here on the right. It has, yep, there's the rest of the animation. So the animations straight away are working, and she just got a whole whack of 8 temporary hit points. You can see it says over here the base damage, it's not damage actually, it's temporary hit points is 8. So straight away that's worked anyway. Lovely. So not unhappy with that. I need to check all the spells though, because those are potentially the problem ones. Clerics and druids have access to a whole massive range of spells, so there's a lot to check. If you've got something like a sorcerer, well, they've only got a few spells, they're easy to check. Druids, clerics, not so much. So in theory, yeah, this is working, this is up. It says it lasts for 60 seconds here. For 1 minute, it gave me my temporary hit points. So that's the kind of thing that I'm going to be doing, is checking that those things work. But I also need to check that the level of automation that I would like through midi-Qol is also working. And I've got a number of items that I have made specifically. You can see on the right hand side, I've got the spirit totems. I just use spirit totem bear. That's in there. But what about some of the other things, like the Hero's Feast thing that I made? I made some stuff for Curse of Strahd, which is things like Fire Bottle. There is no reason that wouldn't work, but I need to check it. So we know that that works in the current Curse of Strahd pack that people are using. Now I've updated it. Well, what happens if those individuals also update to the 2024 rules, and they may already be there? Do these items still work in a slick enough way? I mean, a number of these things are just treasures that they can find and pick up rather than being magic items. But there are a few. What? Like the Furtive Fire Starter, which is one that I made recently. You know, does that actually work? Let's give it to Olwen. I have to remember to take it off of Olwen again. She ends up with all these things like, what's this in my... So in theory, if I slap that down, we should see light appear and a little fireball icon for those who watched it. Yeah, okay, brilliant. So that's worked immediately because that's not impacted by the 2024 rules. I don't see that that has actually created the extra light that I wanted. So I will need to look at it. I'll need to look at everything, check everything. That is my weekend gone doing all of that. I'm not sure when this video is going to come out because I'm going to do it, as I said, I'm going to do it in parts just to show you how things are working, what that process is of if you are foolish like me and you're updating mid-game, what you need to do and make sure you set enough time aside to check that everything is going to work the way you want, and where it's not ready to work the way you want, you've got time to work out what you're going to do about that. Do you just go, right, I'll remove any automation from that spell and we'll deal with it the old way, or do you have it half and half, etc.? So you need to make those decisions yourself. Right, okay, so I need to go off and play with settings and things. I will show you what my settings are once I've worked them out and got them working, and then we'll do some tests. All right, I'll see you soon. Okay, so we've got everything updated. It's now time to look at some of our settings and things. So I'm going to go through midi-Qol because that's the big one, isn't it? It drives a lot of the other things, and then when we do some testing we'll see if there's any particular issues. Now I have noticed, I must apologize, my sound seems to have gone a little bit weird in the first part of this video, so I do apologize for that. Hopefully we're able to correct that somewhat and not be too horrific for you. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, my recording software had an update recently and it seems to have done something a bit strange to my microphone, which is a bit of a pain. But anyway, onwards and upwards. So for those of you who don't know midi-Qol, this is probably not the video for you to start with midi-Qol. We have got other ones in there looking at add-ons, looking at automation. We go into a bit more detail. This is going to be quite a whistle stop. So it does appear that it has brought over, even though I've updated to a completely different branch, it does seem to have kept a majority of my settings. So really this is just having a whiz through to make sure I'm happy with what's there before I actually test it, which you may or may not want to do. I could just jump into testing and then find out what's not working and then resolve it that way, but you know, I want to start with this one. So I'm starting with, I'm not going to the quick settings, I've not touched those because it seems to have pulled in my settings already. So quickly whiz them through these. I'm going to go backwards because that's the way it works for me in my brain. Rules, I don't use flanking for my game. Advantage, disadvantage when for invisible, unseen creatures. Rules as written. Do I check for hidden status? I always have that on. Attacking removes the hidden ability, so if you're invisible, if you're hiding, that should remove that. If you make an attack, you're no longer hidden, which is good. And you can see I don't really use a lot of these other optional ones here, so that's all fine. Mechanics wise, so this is what I mean, it's brought these bits in. I like to have it that when a character, monster, player, whatever it is, gets to 50% or below, it puts this little icon on them to show that they're bleeding. It gives a little visual indicator for my players that that monster is looking pretty battered and bashed about. And of course my players can see when their other party members are also in a similar position. What happens when you hit 0 hit points? Incapacitated for players, dead for Game Master controlled ones as a general thing. Anything else down here? Yeah, this is all fairly standard. This is all stuff that you can kind of customize if you want to. Ability check, advantage gives skill advantage. In other words, if you have advantage on strength checks, does that affect skills impacted by strength? I say yes. Again, you don't have to have that. That looks all good. Miscellaneous, there's all sorts of bits in here that you may or may not use. I'm not going to touch any of this, I don't think, at this point, because I'm hoping it's brought in the things that I wanted it to do. A lot of this is kind of flavour, but sometimes you need to, you know, things like roll statistics, do you need to keep those? No, you don't, that's up to you. So there's not a lot in here I need to worry about. I'm happy with leave that as it is. Reactions, so reaction processing, this may well have got some changes to it. Again, I'm not going to change any of those. You can pause the video to see what I've got if you want to. Concentration, force a concentration save when damage is taken. I always have that on. Remove concentration on a failed concentration save, etc. Those are all for me very standard, and they're kind of rules as written. So I leave that. Remove concentration when the effect is removed. So you don't want your players still concentrating on a spell that's actually ended. So let's get rid of that. We don't need that. Here's the big one, the workflow. Again, I'm probably not going to touch anything in here because this should all be correct the way it has been brought in from my previous settings. But again, just so that you can see them, you can pause as you look at these. So I've got things like my auto targeting, yes, and I ignore dead for those. All of those kind of things. My hits auto check if attack hits a target. Well, I think the D&D engine does that anyway now, so that's possibly not required. That might be somewhere where you go, oh, hang on, I've got a conflict, it's trying to do it twice. Well, no, we'll find out. That's the point of this. The rest of that is all fairly normal for how I have set it. Auto apply damage to the target. Of course, you don't need to have that on. I like to have that on because it's just another little bit of admin I don't need to do. This is what I like about midi-Qol, is the fact that there's some things it will just calculate for me and it will just remove hit points. You've hit the target, brilliant. If you've been following this channel for a while, what you'll know is that when we look at the player options, I tend not to automate too much from the players. In other words, they click their item and it does all the rolls and it does all the damage, it does everything for them. I think for the players that removes a lot of the fun of combat. I want them to be clicking to make their attack roll. I want them to be clicking to do their damage rolls. I don't want to automate that. So auto attack roll, it's got here. I don't normally have that on. So I'm not sure if that MIDI's brought that in for us. We can go to quick settings, just so you guys know, and you can go, well, player attack damage rolls manual. If I click that, that will apply some of those changes for me. Of course, it closes the window just to be annoying. And then when we come back to player, you can see that's turned auto attack roll off for me. So auto-consuming spell resources and things like that, I do want it to auto-consume their spell slots. Auto-roll damage, no. Confirm ammunition choice when rolling attack. That's probably something you'd want on if you've got multiple, if you've got normal crossbow bolts and silver crossbow bolts or something. Again, I've not really played with that. I'm going to need it soon because I now know my players have a range of different ammunition they could use. Auto roll damage, no, never. You can see you've got different settings on there. I don't want them to auto roll damage. I want my players to roll it themselves. I want them to have the joy of clicking the button and watching the dice, the anticipation and things like that. Auto fast forward rolls, you can have that on for both or not. I'm going to say my no. Remove the chat card buttons after the roll. So this is up to you. So when they click the damage roll, does it leave the damage roll button available for them to click it again? Now the chances are they're not going to need it again, so I normally would have that. It removes that button for them. They don't need it. Okay. Now for the GM though, this is where I do like midi-Qol to do a lot of automation, because as the DM I might be dealing with 20 goblins against 2 players. They've only got to worry about themselves. I've got to roll for 20 goblins. So I do auto attack. Confirm ammunition choice when rolling attack. I'm not worried about that for my monsters. They generally only have one type of ammunition, so I'm not going to worry about that. Auto roll damage if it's needed, yes please, just do that straight away, etc, etc. So that all looks pretty darn good. I'm happy with that, and I'm not sure there's anything else I actually need to play with. Obviously Cauldron of Plentiful Resources has had an update, and this might be something that I come back and look at with things like compendium options. Where am I looking for stuff? Which is my item compendium? Now it's defaulting at the moment to the DDB folder, but we've now got the 2024 book, haven't we? So that may not, I mean, there's such a huge array of choices. That might not be the right place now. So there's things like that that you might want to come in assuming you go the CPR route, that you might want to do that. The spell compendium, you know, okay, DDB spells. Now what that means is my game is going to continue defaulting, CPR is going to default to using the spells that I've already got in here, which are the 2014 ones. And that is not a bad thing for my setup and my game. We're part way through. I don't want to suddenly stuff everything up. But looking through here, you know, there's the spells, the SRD spells, but I suspect there is, we've got all these other CPR things in here. Yeah, it doesn't look like specifically it looks at the compendium. It's interesting. SRD. Now, is that going to be the 2014 SRD or the 2024 SRD? Don't know. We'd have to play with that. But because I've got this mixture of currently they're playing 2014, even though we've updated to the 2024 Foundry game engine, I'm going to be picking and mixing a bit just to make life awkward for myself. Yeah, why not? Why not? Absolutely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a scene now and chuck my players in there, making careful. I think they're all on full health at the moment, so they haven't long had a long rest, because what I don't want to do is do some testing with my actual players and then find that we start our game next week and they've all got, you know, they've lost hit points and they've got spell effects and things on them. So I will need to note down what their status is at the moment so I can return them, and they will never know that I was playing with them in the background. So that's what I'm going to do now, and I will be back shortly, and we'll do some test fights. Da, 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 da. See you soon. Okay, so here we are then. For those of you who spotted the deliberate mistake when I was looking at CPR and it was about selecting from the right compendium, I hadn't actually activated the PHB and the DMG modules, which is probably why they didn't appear in the CPR list. But hey, this is what we're here to do. We're here to just basically have a bit of fun and kick each other in the teeth and see what happens. So I've just brought in some a wolf, a needle blight, a werewolf, which of course has some resistances, and a couple of goblins, along with my player party, which includes Irina in here. So we should be able, notice also I've got my Dragonborn is invisible. He is invisible at the moment, and my cleric is exhausted. So we'll see if that automatically has an impact. There's quite a lot to sort of keep an eye on here. So let's open a combat, and bearing in mind I didn't touch any of the settings in anything other than having a little look at midi-Qol, that little tweak to the player's stuff. Combat carousel clearly has come in immediately, no problems with that, not that I was expecting it. I'm just going to roll initiative for everybody. Boom, boom, there go all the dice. Notice the different colour dice because that's the ones my player characters have picked. Yes, there's no accounting for taste. So we've all got initiative now. We should be able to just start our combat just as we always did without too much drama. And Irina's going to be up first. Now, I do want the combat HUD. Right, okay, so it has brought up the combat HUD for us, which is great. Now you'll notice immediately Irina hasn't got anything in there because I've not actually used... Weirdly enough, Irina's not actually used the combat HUD in battle yet. So we're going to give her a rapier, make sure she's actually got that, make sure she's got her breastplate equipped, which is good. She's got everything like that. Now, she's not particularly amazing. She is, yeah, so she's 3rd level at the moment, fighter rogue. In the module, it doesn't really tell you, it just says about using the expert companion or something like that, which... Yeah, sure, it kind of works, but I don't like that, so I've actually made her into a class-based character because then she can level with the rest of the players as she's supposed to and feel a bit more rounded. And also, if I get to a position where I have a player who wants to join, they potentially can take over Irina as a player. And later on, when my party encounter Esmeralda, because it gets quite challenging, you'll know this, if you're a DM, you'll know this, trying to look after NPCs that are accompanying the party can get a bit tricky because now you're trying to play as well as DM. So I'm potentially going to recruit another player to look after those. Don't tell my players who possibly are watching this video. At least one of them will be. Okay, so Irina's ready to go, so let's just do some really basic things. We can use the HUD. We know we can move 6 squares, so let's charge in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and of course she can't reach from here. So her only option is to do something like end her turn, to use the dodge action, or to or just to stand there. Now, if I look in her inventory, she doesn't even have a missile weapon. So we're just and of course, this is not smart way to do combat. We're testing stuff, all right? So don't criticize and go, oh, you shouldn't have done that, you idiot. I know. So if we say that she's dodging, at the moment, this doesn't actually do anything. It just lets us know that she's dodging, right? So we'll have to see if that actually has any effect. Okay, right, we've now got our druid. Now, druids, of course, have a whole bunch of stuff going on. I'm not going to do her spirit bear totem because I kind of accidentally tested that earlier, didn't I? That already worked, but let's cast a spell. Now, something I know my druid uses a lot, because why wouldn't you, is entangle. So straight away, it is correctly giving me the template. Let's entangle these people down here, and I want to make sure this. Some of you will know that this is really annoying. I want to snap it to the grid, and it will snap to the bits. It will snap to the center of a square or the side of a square. Well, I want it to only snap to the vertices where the grid joins. It don't like it. It doesn't like it at all, and that is an ongoing challenge that hopefully it will get fixed at some point. Right, there we go. We're going to cast that. Yes, my druid very specifically requested extra butterflies, so much she now has butterflies. Now, this is... Olwen has placed this, etc. It is asking for saving throws, but it's not telling me who this saving throw is for. It will tell me in there, so the hobgoblin, etc. So it is rolling it, and that should be the werewolf there. So it told me that the werewolf has made it, the goblin and the hobgoblin didn't. So what we would expect to see, of course, that animation should stay, and it hasn't. Normally it does. So that's one of those little things that straight away I know I need to tweak, is that should stay, it's not. I've updated automated animations as well as the game engine, so that will need a little tweak. And this is what I mean by testing it, is my druid gets her butterflies that she wanted, and she got the initial template, but now it's disappeared, and we want, for entangle, we want that to stay, don't we? Alright, so we can see that this werewolf, they all have these entangled symbols because they're in there. Now these two failed, so they should be entangled, but it's not actually doing that. So it's not automated that. So we know that some of these things are not quite working. What I didn't do was just to check CPR's medikit. You can see it's saying that there's 18 things out of date. And if I can actually use my eyes properly, weirdly enough, the one I'm expecting to see isn't in there. What one is it? Totem Bear Spirit that I made is up to date. Unarmed Strike, Charm Person, Detect Magic, Earth Tremor, Fairy Fire, Fog Cloud, Wild Shape, Thunder Wave, Flaming Sphere. All of those things it thinks are out of date. So I can update those and make sure that... Go on, you know you want to do it. Oh, okay. It was just taking its time because there was quite a few of them. It's updated a huge amount of things, actually. That was much more than it's... Oh, no, it was 18, wasn't it? That's more than 18, I'm sure. But there we go. So we've updated a whole bunch of stuff, which is really good. I can't see in there that it updated specifically. Dude, it has made my system go a bit slow for a moment. I didn't see that it particularly updated. I'm going to break concentration on that. We should see that effect has disappeared from them and the template disappeared. So that's good. Break concentration. The spell has ended. It has removed those things. So at the moment, this is an improvement. And I'm not going to do this with every single spell and ability in this video before you start panicking, because that could take a very long time. Let's medkit just this. This reckons There's no automation found for this at this point. Okay, I'm not going to panic about that. That's fine, because that's something that I can note down to have a little look at and to fix. It's not a big deal for me to right click on these and apply those status effects, wherever it is. For it's the spiderweb one, isn't it? Yeah, there we go, to say restraints. That's not a big deal. Alright, so that is sort of working, but needs some tweaking, and this is what I expected some of these things would. Let's completely change and cast Fairy Fire instead. So again, I've got a template. Is this one going to do a similar? Is it going to work? Let's try. Cast that. It's just what you need is a character sheet in the way. You should be using the HUD, of course. We're going to make our saving throws. These are all going to be normal. We've got our little animation for the template, and we can see again the werewolf made it, the other two didn't. Now on this occasion the werewolf does not have the Fairy Fire symbol, which is fine. The goblin and the werewolf do. Alright, so can we please leave your HUD on? Thank you very much. Now we are going to assume that the druid has finished her turn after casting what actually was just Fairy Fire in the end. Goblins go. Now the goblin is surrounded by Fairy Fire, so how should that affect things? Well, first of all, let's move in and attempt to attack Irina. Now remember, we clicked the dodge thing, so in theory her armor class is increased, but I bet it hasn't. Hello Irina, we didn't need you up that big and close. And this is what I mean about the automation. So this goblin is now going to make his attack, and it's not necessarily going to take that into account. So as the DM, he's missed anyway, but if he'd rolled a bit higher and had hit, I would then need to manually decide whether actually that should have hit or not. If you've got automated damage and stuff on, as the DM, like I have, it would have said, oh yeah, you've hit that, and I'm going to roll damage and I'm going to apply damage, all lovely jubbly, but it hasn't taken into account the fact that she's dodging. So it may not have hit, but it's applied the damage. See what I mean? Does that make sense? If you know the rules, you know what you're doing, then that probably does. If not, good luck. Go and read that bit in the rulebook about the dodge. So that's the dodge isn't automating, and I suspected that was the case. When we clicked dodge, it gave us a message, but it didn't actually do anything. Now I know that you used to be, and I'm not sure if it's in CPR actions, dodge. So for Cauldron of Plentiful Resources, Chris and the team deliberately made one so that rather than using the default dodge action, which doesn't do anything, you use this one, which should make her dodge. So let's try that and see if that works. So again, we're not going to spend forever going through every single one of these. I just want to show you the process. That's, by the way, that's Ripper's Omnisearch, which is, for me, is just beyond a lifesaver. So this is her action. So let's get her to dodge now. And you can see that that actually came up and said dodging, and now she's got an icon. So let's get this gobbo to attempt that attack again. Now, what effect has this actually had? It says dodge, which is fine, and if we look at it, it's got our origin effects, it's got the length of time, and the changes. You can see attacks are at disadvantage, it should be, and we have advantage on dex saves. So that's what it should be. So when this goblin makes his attack, it should automatically make this goblin attack at disadvantage. I'm not hugely confident, but it did just roll 2 dice. And it says over there in the right hand chat that that was at disadvantage, and you can open that up to see what the 2 different rolls were if you want to check it. So it did, in fact, the CPR dodge works. So we don't want this dodge down here. And I'm not sure if we can customize that in the HUD to say use this, not that. This is where they start to talk to each other in perhaps unexpected ways. But there we go. So that has worked. That's fine, which is lovely. We're just checking all of these things. You've got a ranged attack, so we're going to be using your ranged attack, I think, with all of our needles. Now again, Irina is still dodging, so in theory that attack should be at disadvantage, which it is, and we missed. Now I've got no automated animations attached to that needles attack. Do I need it? No. Does it look pretty? Yes. Will I put it on? Probably. But it's not critical. It's going to go towards the bottom of my list of important things that I need to look at and fix. You know, the pretty shinies, you have to decide whether the visual effects are more important than the mechanics or not, depending how much you automate. It's as simple as that. So we're going to stay there, Needle Blight. You're going to continue using your missile fire. We now have our exhausted cleric. Now, remember, when we are exhausted, it will tell you levels of exhaustion. Excuse me. So you start getting effects on your D20 tests and things like that. So what's actually going to impact us? Because again, while I've been playing D&D for 30 years, actually it's more than that. Oh, that's terrifying. I've been through so many iterations of the rules that I often have to check the rules to make sure I'm using the most appropriate one. So condition is cumulative. Each time you gain a level of exhaustion. D20 tests. When you make D20 tests, the roll is reduced by 2 times your exhaustion level. So in other words, any D20 test should have a -2. And it should reduce your speed as well. So what speed are we here? We're at 25. So this character does indeed, and that's represented in the hub at the bottom left by those blue dots. We have indeed had a reduced speed, as we would expect. That's a core Foundry, core D&D engine thing, the exhaustion, which is good. And we've got that applied correctly. So what can this individual do? Well, we've got our silvered short sword, which means we probably ought to move in towards the known problematic individual in this combat, which is that werewolf. So we're going to move in closer. I've used up all my speed, so maybe we will cast a spell while we are here. What are we going to cast? Oh, we haven't got very much going on. Let's try sleep. Okay, now it says I've got no available slots. Yeah, we're going to ignore that again, because you know these are actual players. I need to reset them back. So place a measure template. Yes, it's big. We're going to get ourselves in there. What the heck? Let's see what happens. We're going to roll all those dice. How many hit points are we affecting with that? And then it tells us that we miss everything. Sidus resisted it himself. We did a base damage of 23. Now, that goblin's got 7 hit points. You would expect him to have gone down, but it says it missed, which is interesting. I might need to look at sleep, because it should affect... this is the 2014 rules. It should affect the creature with the lowest hit points first. And 23 is definitely more than that goblin has. It should have put that goblin to sleep. Then it should have looked at the thing with the next lowest hit points, which may well be the wolf, and then seen about putting that to sleep. But you can just see it said it missed, which is not the wording I would expect. But again, that's why we do this. Now, he's concentrating on sleep, but that's fine. So let's move on and end his turn. We've now got our sorcerer. So again, let's just do a melee attack with our crossbolt. Let's target. I'm going to clear my chat just to keep that a bit neater. We're going to target this goblin that has fairy fire on it. So let's have a shoot. And we have indeed got advantage, which we should get because they've got fairy fire. We've managed to shoot it and it has died. Now, interestingly, it's still got fairy fire on it, because even though it's dead, we have a glowing corpse. Brilliant. Right, so that has worked. And then we've got our invisible dude that I'm just going to bring up into combat range here and not to do anything with, because I'm going to attack him on that hobgoblin's go. So let's move on. Wolf let's bring the wolf in. We're going to have a quick attack on Irina, who is still dodging because she's dodging for her whole turn. We're going to make that attack. Yes, it's at disadvantage as it should be. It didn't manage to hit. And because it didn't hit, it didn't prompt her to make the saving throw. I put a wolf in because if they hit, they have the ability to knock you prone. So it failed to do so on this occasion, which is fine. We now have our Werewolf of Doom. In fact, let's again pick on poor Irina, and we're going to attack her with our just with our bite here. Gain at disadvantage, which is good because she is dodging. You can see when you automate it, you can see the power of that dodge action. It's really good, but you obviously are sacrificing your attacks for it. All right, we're failed there. We're just going to stick with that. Here's that hobgoblin. We're going to attempt to attack. We're going to attempt to attack. I've spun him. We're going to attempt to attack this invisible creature. So longsword. It is correctly doing disadvantage, which is great. That's what we wanted. That's what it should do, attacking something you can't see, which is brilliant. All right, let's end that then. We've automatically ended our dodge, which is what we wanted to see. That is great. I'm going to skip Irina's go. I'm going to skip our druid's go for the moment. You're dead, goblin. That's a setting you can have in the combat tracker about removing them when they're dead. That's something that I should do. Let's move to our dude who has a silvered short sword attacking a werewolf. So let's make that attack, and if we miss, we're going to attack again. Just predicting that. We're going to keep going. We are going to hit it eventually. There we go. We hit. So we have rolled a 1 for damage. And it has done 2 damage for that. So we rolled a 1 plus 1 piercing damage. So that has done full damage, even though it was a rubbish roll. It has done full damage against that werewolf. Now, if Irina, with her non-silvered rapier, makes an attack, it's saying using reaction because it's not her turn. Yes, I'm going to proceed anyway. Yes, I'm cheating the rules. It's letting me do that. I want her to hit it. She has. She's rolled massively with an 8, and it's done 9 damage. So her weapon is not silvered. And it's not magic, is it? No. So this werewolf is supposed to have these immunities to this damage. It says it did that amount of damage, but it didn't actually reduce the hit points. So while she has rolled really good damage, it did not apply damage to the werewolf because the weapon she used, it's immune to. So that's the kind of thing that I want to test and make sure is working effectively in this. Because, I mean, they're playing Curse of Strahd. They're going to fight werewolves. So I don't want to worry about, oh, hang on a minute, you shouldn't have been able to do that damage. I want to re-heal my werewolf and get him back to where he should be. So that's all working. Most of this is working really well, just as I would expect. Yes, we need to use the CPR dodge rather than the built-in one, or it doesn't do anything. Yes, a couple of my spells are not quite working, and I knew the spells would be the challenge, and I will literally walk through every single spell that my players have in their arsenal, starting with the ones that they use often. You know, we've got a sorcerer. That's going to be relatively easy because she's only got a relatively small amount of spells. You know, once I've tested Scorching Ray once, fine, it's done. So the only last thing I wanted to test was invisible creature attacking a visible creature. So we should have advantage on the attack, and being an attack, it should get rid of our invisibility. So let's see if that does that. I've used my reaction because it's not my go. I have made that attack. It gave me advantage. It has removed the invisibility. Brilliant. Now the only thing it hasn't done is I'm still concentrating on invisibility. So it hasn't removed the concentration. So that might just be a little setting thing, but you know what? It's not the end of the world, is it? It's really not. So overall, while I have taken a massive leap of faith that things are going to be pretty okay, do you know what? It's pretty okay. I'm not. I was wondering if I'd get to the end of this video and end up just crying in a big pool of tears at the massive mistake I've made by hitting update and updating a live game, which is stupid. It's a really stupid thing to do. Remember, sometimes I do stupid things so that you don't have to, and you get to see how it works. I just want to, Silas, you're still. I've got sleep template up there. That's one of the, that's one of the things where it's like, well, hang on a minute. Once you've done the sleep, you don't need to keep the template up there. If I delete that template from the player, it should remove it from there. I've got my fairy fire going. I should be able to break concentration over here, and that removes fairy fire from everybody and removes that template, which is good. And we just said concentrating on invisibility. He's obviously not invisible anymore. It should have automatically removed that. It didn't. So on the whole, to reiterate what I've just been saying, I'm happy that the automation stuff moving over to the 4.x, what, 4.2.2 I think it was, is fine. Bearing in mind midi-Qol is in beta. CPR is in beta. There is no GPS. We haven't got gambits pre-mates. So I am missing my, well, a whole bunch of things on there. We haven't got, whose go is it? It's Silas. So if I walk within range of a monster and walk out again, I haven't got it prompting for attacks of opportunity. That's a luxury that we don't need. It's really nice to have it and as a prompt to go, hey, by the way, you can take a reaction here. It's really nice, but we do not need it. Yeah. So that's it. Nice little experiment. I will continue doing lots of this in the background. Like I said, I will literally be standing here going, right, okay, let's cast Acid Splash. Does that work? Do I need to fix the animations at all for animated animations? Yes, no. But more importantly, does the spell do what it's supposed to do? So I'll bring in a monster that's immune to acid, something that's immune to fire. In fact, I'll probably just update something there. Something that's immune to poison, you know, and just try these different spells out on the different things. Magic Missile was automation is out of date. See, that's failing there. That was a CPR one, which was just made it beautiful. You can see my medikit's red here. I can update that. Do you know what? This is the problem. I get so distracted by this, going, oh, but it's so exciting. It's so so good. Does Magic Missile work? Oh, it's going to ask me, do I want to... can I add targets onto there? No, I need to select my targets beforehand. I can send all 3 missiles, in theory, directly to that hobgoblin. Boo, boo, boo. I don't ask about those sound effects. I want to put some sound effects on for some of my spells. That's not to be done first. So I need to know mechanically that they work. Then I need to make sure my animations, I'm happy with them. And then I can potentially look at some sound effects for some of those spells. You know, Scorching Ray, I want Flaming Burning, Magic Missile, yeah, some boo boo boo, or something like that, or whatever. You know what I'm on about. But anyway, I'm going to call this a success, even if it does give me a fair bit of work to do to polish things off and make sure things are working. I'm not unhappy with that at all. So I hope this has been useful in helping you decide, if you haven't moved yet, whether you should or shouldn't, and how scary it is. Again, remember that some of these things are in beta. We don't have GPS, which might be a deal breaker for you. But on the whole, things ain't too bad, are they? Thank you for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.